Our objectives for today's training are to review the gradebook setup and the proctoring options. Those were 2 trainings earlier in the semester, and there will be links to those. And you can also find more information about those on our YouTube channel. To explore the end of semester items, we'll talk about reviewing the setup, reviewing the grading scheme, entering and posting, and doing the final grade check, and then preparing your course for the future. Along the way, hopefully you'll learn some tips and tricks that will help you prepare your class, your course for the future. So the first part is to review. Again, these were 2 trainings we covered earlier in the semester. This is the gradebook setup. There are 6 steps for setting up an efficient and student-centered gradebook. The link in the presentation, once you grab that, will link you to the previous presentation. So feel free to run through that in much more detail than is shown here. But that's always the foundation for setting up a solid gradebook in the course, are those 6 steps. And then the second piece, as we enter final exam time here, are proctoring options. We did a session on proctoring options earlier in the semester, and you may want to consider the options for setting up a proctored exam. Again, this is a chart that details a lot of the information, but a lot more of it can be found in this space right here. And I know that was back in February, and Marco and I spent a lot of time testing various scenarios with those proctoring options. So feel free to explore that option as well if you would like. What we're going to focus the majority of today's time on is exploring the end of semester gradebook essentials for the course, assuming you are familiar with those first 2 steps that we just reviewed. The first is to review the course gradebook setup, and there are several things we need to review. Some of these were mentioned in that earlier gradebook training, but that includes the assignment groups and weights, the assignment group rules, and the late and missing submissions. So to do that, if you go into the course, there are a couple of places you need to check. The first is in assignments in the course navigation. And once you're in assignments, the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner, there is the assignment group's weight. You need to make sure that the weights in this space match the weights that are detailed in the syllabus for a course. And if they're not, then obviously we need to adjust those. And the categories should also match. The group should match the categories in a syllabus. And that is the first step. Also, within each group, then, once that is set, we want to make sure that the rules match. So notice there are 2 rules here. If I select the 3 dots within the group itself, I can choose Edit, and I can see what the rules are. For example, in this case, they are drop the lowest score, but never drop this particular test right here. So that way, if that were the student's lowest score, their second lowest score in that case would be dropped. So we need to make sure that those rules are set up, that the weights are set up correctly, and that the rules are set up correctly. So those are the first 2 bullets. The second is the late and missing submissions. And to do that, again, we would navigate back to Canvas. That is found in the grades, though. And from here, if we hit the gear, you can see the late and the missing policies. So these need to be set correctly, again, so that they match the syllabus of the course. Having those set before anything is sent to Howdy or grades are finalized will be very useful and important. If an instructor is giving extra credit, consider how that is going to be given. If it is a points-based system, there's one way to do that. If it's a weights-based, then we would actually need to add a weight in here called extra credit and set it at whatever percent that would be, 2, 3, 4% of the grade, so that a student could, in theory, get above 100%. More information is detailed on the grade setup presentation from earlier in the semester as well. So that's the first step. The second step is to review the grading scheme for the course. And again, this should also match the syllabus, and it's what is, and that is to ensure that the grade sent from Canvas to Howdy matches the syllabus. So to do that, again, within Canvas, from the course navigation under Settings, locating the option for enabling the course grading scheme, and then viewing the grading scheme and making sure that this matches what is laid forth in the syllabus. If it does not, either select another scheme, or if the scheme doesn't exist, manage the grading scheme and create a new grading scheme to match, again, what is laid out in the syllabus for the course. This is probably the most important piece. The others that were previously mentioned, obviously very important, but if the scheme is wrong, then the grade that's carried over to Howdy is going to be wrong as well. So making sure that is set is very important. The third step is to enter and post all grades. Any score that has a blank cell cannot be carried over. So if you look at a Canvas gradebook in a course and there are blank cells, they cannot be carried over to Howdy. Howdy can't recognize that. So everything has to have a grade entered into that. We have a couple of options for how to do that. Within the gradebook in Canvas, which of course you can access by selecting grades, on every column, there is the option to select the three dots and choose set default grade. And this allows you to set the default grade. So if the grade posting policy wasn't set, for example, that students who didn't turn it in would receive a 0, and you have a large column of students who didn't turn something in, you can say, okay, if there's not a score there, all the students are going to receive a 0. Just make sure you do not check the overwrite already entered scores, as that will obviously overwrite the scores that are already there. So if you have a large amount of 0s to enter, you can do that really quickly without having to touch every single cell, and you can do that by assignment. So I can choose set default grade, and I can enter that very quickly and easily within Canvas, again, so that I don't have any cells without a value. Because right now, this gradebook could not be exported to Howdy because I have multiple assignments where I don't have anything entered. So I would have to set the default grade or manually go in and enter the grade or grade them through the speed grader if the student had submitted something, depending on what that option looks like. It's going to be a little bit different for every situation. Just remember, there are some considerations for third-party tools. Those do vary greatly by how they're utilized within Canvas and how instructors use them. So I always like to make a note of that. Just make sure you consider third-party tools, how they bring grades over. They may have to be entered in the third-party tool. They may also be able to be overwritten in Canvas. Just depends on how they're used, how they're brought in, how the instructor uses them. And I see we've had a couple people join us. We are recording this session. We'll post the recording later on. Of course, we're also happy to answer any questions that you have along the way, and we'll be happy to do anything to help. An alternative method for entering and posting grades, if you have 0s in the Canvas gradebook, or blanks rather in the Canvas gradebook, and you don't like using the set default grade for whatever reason, you can export the gradebook as a CSV. You can update that, and then you can import that. That is a bit more labor intensive, but there are individuals that like to do that. So I can go to the gradebook, I can export the gradebook, in which it will export as a CSV. At that point, I then have the ability to download that and save it. And from there, I can open the gradebook, make any changes that I need to make within Excel. So all of these that are blank, I would need to enter scores for. And then I can and once I have saved that, then I can go back to Canvas and I can select import, and then I can choose the file and import that way. But either way, you have to remove all of the blanks in the gradebook. You can't have any blanks in the gradebook when you're ready to submit the grades to Howdy. So this method is a bit more labor intensive. There are some advantages to it, and there are a number of instructors that use that. The fourth thing is to enable the grade override if an instructor intends to use that. So if the grade override is going to be used, then it has to be enabled, and that can be enabled by going to Canvas and in the gradebook, selecting the gear, and then selecting advanced and choosing the option allow final grade override. If the final grade override is selected, a column appears in the gradebook, the very last column, on Canvas or on the CSV. And the gradebook override enters a letter grade based on the grading scheme of the course. So again, back a couple of slides, that's why the grading scheme of the course is extremely important, because this is probably the #1 error we see this time of the year, where instructors will enter the grade override, but they won't match what they think the grade should be. And it's because the grading scheme hasn't been set correctly. So if I enter a grade for a student, it's going to change that to what that grade would be based on the percentage. So I enter the numeric value or the percentage value, and it changes it to the appropriate letter grade. So if I enter the score numerically, it's going to automatically change that to the correct letter grade. I'm going to pause for just a second. So the grade override column is optional. If it is utilized, it must be entered for every single student. So what you cannot do is you cannot enable the grade override and then enter it for one student. So I can't just change the score, for example. I have to enter the grade override for every single student. Now, maybe that's just copying over their percentage and they get the same score, but I have to enter something for every student if the grade override is enabled. The last suggestion is to do a final check. And to do a final check, you would download the CSV after everything had been entered. So after all the blank cells have been taken care of, all the grade overrides, if that's utilized, then a final check will be conducted by exporting the CSV and looking at that. So what do students see? If I'm a student in a course and I log into Canvas, what I see is the current grade in the course. I see this score right here. That's what I see. Oh, I apologize. There's a typo here. This is what is sent to Canvas. Should be what is sent to Howdy. Apologize there. Still recovering from my cold. What is sent to Canvas? That should be what is sent to Howdy. The unposted final grade is what is sent to Howdy. So in this case, the student obviously is going to have a problem because they see a C in the course, but they're in fact receiving an F. The grade override, if utilized, is what is sent. So this is what the student always sees. However, if the override is not utilized, the unposted final is what is sent. Ideally, these would match, but we do see times where they don't, and that's where problems arise. And then if the grade override is used, that is what is sent. So in this case, the student sees a C, their unposted final, because the instructor hasn't entered all the scores, is an F, but their grade override, if it were utilized, would be a B. So obviously there can be vast differences in what this is. Ideally, there shouldn't be, but we do see that from time to time where the unposted and the current especially don't match, and that can really cause a problem. And then the last step is to submit to Howdy. I actually am unable, I don't have a Howdy test account, so I can't log into Howdy to show you, but I downloaded this GIF that we have on our website. And there's more information on the LMS website about how to do that. Just be aware there is a possible grade discrepancy alert. So this was enabled a semester or two ago. So if these two columns don't match, whichever column is sent to Howdy, if it doesn't match what the student is seeing, then you will receive a warning. So just be aware of that and know that there is a possible issue there. It's just meant to red flag those issues that could come up. So we have some detailed information on our website about how to do that. And then the last thing, which is not related to submitting your grades to Howdy, but preparing your course for the future. You may want to consider exporting your course at this time at the end of the semester. So that way you have a copy and you know it's there and you can import that at the start of next semester. It just prepares your course for the future. It will be there in the future to export, but I know a lot of instructors like to have that peace of mind knowing that it's there now. They have the backup. They can take that backup file when the time comes in the fall or in the summer or whenever, and they can import that into their course. So to export a course, you navigate to settings, export the course content, choose the type, which is the entire course, create an export, and then download or save that. So to do that, probably a review for most of you, but we'll navigate to settings and then export course content. You would choose the entire course, create an export. Once it's downloaded, it will show in this space right here. If it's the first time you've ever done it, it will say new export, and you simply click on this and it will prompt you where you would like to download that. So you can download that file and save it anywhere so that you have it ready to import into your course whenever you teach this course again.